Okay, here's a question for you. What if the key to getting a really committed customer wasn't about having flashy, persuasive marketing, but actually the exact opposite? Today, we're going to dive into this really fascinating business case that kicks off not with a five-star review, but with some surprisingly negative feedback. So you see a quote like this, and you probably think, okay, that's from a hater or a customer who had a bad experience, right? But get this. This feedback came from a client after his problem was completely solved. So the real question is, why would a happy customer say this? And maybe more importantly, why on earth did he buy in the first place?
All right, so let's just paint the picture here. You've got a customer, he's got a problem, he finds this company, he uses their service, and boom, he gets the exact solution he was looking for. Everything's great. But then he turns around and says that the very social media content that got him in the door was totally unconvincing. It just doesn't add up.
Now, this is the totally logical question the business owner asked him. It's the same thing we're all thinking, isn't it? If the marketing was so bad, what was it that actually pushed him over the edge to make the purchase? Well, the answer is definitely not what you're expecting. See, this wasn't a decision that came from logic or some slick sales pitch. Nope. It was fueled by something way, way more powerful. And there it is. The real motivation wasn't persuasion. It was pure desperation. This customer had already tried everything else. He was at the end of his rope, and this unconvincing company was pretty much the last option on his list. It was just a final, desperate gamble. And listen, this wasn't a small gamble either. We're talking about a few €1,000. That what-the-hell moment was a pretty significant financial risk, which just goes to show you how deep and painful his problem really was. But here's the kicker. That few €1,000, while a lot of money, was actually less than the fortune he'd already sunk into other solutions that completely failed him. So in his head, yeah, the risk was high, but the tiny, tiny chance of finally fixing his problem, that was worth one last shot. So you might be thinking, wow, this business just got super lucky, huh? Well, not at all. It turns out that unconvincing content was 100% intentional. They have this strategy that pretty much flies in the face of every marketing rule you've ever heard. They call it self-selection. And the whole idea isn't to attract everybody. In fact, it's the opposite. It's designed to actively push away people who aren't the right fit. The only ones who stick around are the ones who are serious enough to look past the surface and actually dig into the information. Their so-called anti-trend approach is surprisingly simple. They don't chase trends or try to be flashy. They just post pure, unadulterated information, no fluff. This saves them a ton of time, which they can then pour into their actual client work. And the result? They attract clients who are already serious, already invested, and ready to go. And this quote from the owner, man, it just sums up the entire philosophy, doesn't it? It's basically a challenge. The content acts like a test. If you're too impatient, if all you want is a quick and shiny sales pitch, you're automatically out. They only want to work with people who are truly ready to engage. But wait, there's an even deeper reason for this whole strategy. It's not just about finding the right clients. It's about this fundamental belief that for what they do, trust has to come before a detailed explanation is even possible. So the owner poses this fascinating question to the customer who is now, totally satisfied. He asks, hey, what if, before you paid us a dime, I had laid out every single step of our process? Would you have even understood it back then? And the customer's answer is absolutely wild. He straight up admits that a full, transparent explanation at the beginning would have sounded so unbelievable that he would have just written them off as a sophisticated scam. Think about that. Too much information, too early, would have completely destroyed any chance of trust. This really lays out two totally different ways of doing things. The old way is all about trying to convince people, using a hard sell, explaining every little detail. But this new way, it's about informing, filtering out the wrong people, and building a real foundation of trust first. For some really complex solutions, the customer has to trust the guide before they can even begin to understand the map. That trust is the very thing that makes the whole process work. But the company's clever strategy isn't the whole story. There is one final, absolutely crucial piece to this whole puzzle: the customer himself. And in this remarkable twist, the business owner actually gives all the credit for the success back to the customer. He basically says, look, our service alone wasn't enough. This only worked because of what you brought to the table. And these are the exact qualities that their self-selection filter was designed to find. This wasn't just about finding a desperate person. It was about finding someone who was willing to believe without hard proof, to trust a total stranger with a huge problem, and to be an active partner in their own solution, not just a bystander. And you can just hear the transformation in the customer's own words. The outcome was something he literally didn't even think was possible in his wildest dreams. That one decision to trust, a decision born from desperation, led to a completely life-changing result. Now, in the spirit of the very philosophy we've just talked about, the point of telling you this story isn't to convince you that this is the one and only way to do business. No, it's meant to open your eyes, to show that sometimes the most effective path isn't the most popular one, and that there are completely different ways to think about marketing, about trust, and about what success really looks like. The source material we're looking at today leaves us with this simple but really powerful thought. In a world that demands proof and data and explanations for everything, sometimes just taking that leap of faith is the only thing that can actually move you forward. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. In our own lives, when we're staring down a really complex problem where the path forward just isn't clear, when is it better to stop demanding all the answers and instead to simply choose to believe?